All right, it is time for our favorite podcast, Cut to the Chase. I brought Billy Walters on special guest. A lot of my listeners are now coming to become aware of the fact that I'm actually helping out lawyers learn how to market and how to market in the mass tort space. And it's exciting and it's fun, but it's dangerous. Ethical issues, legal issues, you're hiring marketers you don't even know. Ads are going out, you don't even know what's going on with the ad. Then you're like getting sued and all that stuff. So Billy's going to talk about how to avoid all of that. How you doing today, Billy? How you doing today?
I'm good, Greg. Thank you very much. Honored to be here.
All
I'm
right.
good.
So
I'm
Billy
good.
is
Honored to be here.
an attorney and a marketer. He's now corporate counsel at Case Legal Media. He's had his own firm. You still have your own law firm, right?
That's correct. In Texas, yeah.
And you have done mass tort work with other law firms, building their dockets. In other words, acquiring cases and having the law firm have stuff to do, right?
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so well, first tell me about what you do with Case Legal Media.
Yeah, so I'm in the newly appointed role of Chief Legal Officer and Compliance Officer at Case Legal Media. And my main job is just to, like any corporate counsel, is to, protect the company, protect the assets. And then also, going through their publisher agreements, their brokerage agreements, their media buying agreements to make sure that, we got the correct protection in place there. And then also advising them on advertising and disclaimers and making sure that we're compliant with the TCPA and other FCC rules. And so it's a big lift. But like you said, I've been doing marketing for a long time, and in fact, had a over 10-year career in online marketing before going to law school. So when I became an attorney, right out of law school, the main job was to go build dockets for a mass tort firm, a major mass tort firm in Houston. And quickly got into the lead generation space and working with different vendors, call centers, media groups, online, traditional, and got to know that world really well. And so, there was connections that I made in while I was building dockets for that firm that allowed me to facilitate the role that I've had here. And then previously, I was corporate counsel for a nationwide call center as well. So, the TCPA is something, it's always in the background, but certainly becoming much more prevalent on people's minds, mass tort lawyers in particular, just because of all of the advertising that happened with the Camp Lejeune, the juggernaut of advertising that was happening on Camp Lejeune last year. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
All right, so a lot of attorneys that listen to this program know about the marketing. They know case acquisition, lead generation. They know what call centers are, but there's a lot of lawyers out there that have absolutely no clue. For years they were thought, oh, marketing, lawyers don't market. It's unethical. They're not allowed to,
Right.
beneath themselves. And now the legal space is turned upside down. If you're not marketing, and I'm not talking about going to your local church or, going to some club and giving a speech there, but I'm talking about professional marketing. If you're not doing that, you might be completely out of work. That's what I'm seeing. And so I want you to just kind of tell the audience what Case Legal Media does, what a call center is, what lead generation is.
Yeah, okay, so there's different versions of it. And in the mass tort space, there's different, providers that can do the marketing, and then, you'll send those leads to a separate call center. There are other groups that will have a call center that they control, either branded, under their own brand, but also a separate call center. So really what Case Legal Media does, the headquarters is in California, and it's a full service advertising agency. And that, that means everything that it says. It's traditional and digital. There's TV, there's radio, and then there's also online ads. And the online ads can include anything from, just the regular Google ads that you see when you're searching. It can also mean email marketing. It can also mean, the social media lead generation that, that we're all familiar with. And so, Case Legal Media has some preferred call center partners because, really there's the marketing, and then the lead gets generated, and then somebody's got to talk to them. Typically, there are groups out there where it's kind of, they're trying to create an automated process where, you go through some kind of bot channel, and, a retainer agreement spits out at the other end. And then, those are still pretty risky. And also, the quality of client that you receive at that point when nobody's talked with them, I think generally the fallout is pretty high. For somebody like Case Legal Media, there's the marketing and the advertising expertise that gets put behind the firm's agenda and whatever litigation that they're going after, typically mass tort, but also single event. And it can be nationwide, can be state specific. And then those leads are going to be pointed at typically a call center. And there's some preferred providers, and firms sometimes want those leads to come into their own shop, and then they want to qualify those leads. Or if it's a significant campaign, in the millions of dollars, and they'll want those leads to go to a call center, and then spit the retainers back out at the firm. And Case Legal is the latter. The marketing expertise happens at the top level. The owner comes from he was a TV broadcaster in New York City for a very long time, and has a lot of charisma on that side. And then through that got into the TV media buying space. And so a lot of people that are in the lead generation space these days, when they kind of realize that there's sometimes a ceiling as to how many leads and how much marketing you can do online, you'll need to reach out to those traditional channels. And it can be a difficult thing for somebody who only knows digital to then try to go into traditional media, TV, and radio buying, because that's a lot of relationships. And so, the typical client for Case Legal Media, they're either mass tort or they are single event, and most of it is nationwide. And again, that marketing generates leads that are then pointed at some kind of call center. It can be any number of them, and then those leads are then qualified to the firm's criteria. And then if they qualify for the litigation, based on what the firm is wanting, then, that call center can then, send out a retainer agreement for that lead, and then it gets sent over to the firm. And that's kind of, I think anybody listening to this would probably be aware of that process. There are certain things to be aware of course, when you are engaging advertising for mass torts. And I think people are seeing this right now based off of Camp Lejeune, which is, firms have been really, especially if a firm has some kind of litigation financing behind it, the analysts are really, they want that cost per case down to, the dollar, or, a pretty tight range. And so, you've got a lot of marketing groups that are out there promising a certain cost per case. That's something to be very wary of on the firm side. The state bar jurisdictions will, in the ethics rules, it's usually 7.2. You can't get into any kind of guaranteed cost per case. Attorneys can always advertise, just like you said. A lot of them were saying, "Gosh, this is unethical." Well, it's a First Amendment right for the firms to go advertise. However, they can buy leads and they can buy batches of leads, but where you get into a sticky issue if somebody comes looking is when you're getting a guaranteed cost per case. that's something to be very wary of on the firm level, and you want to check your own state bar's rules about that, because most of them don't allow it. And you'll see every once in a while firms and people get in trouble with that. And there's something going on currently in Louisiana where there's a lawyer that just got suspended indefinitely for doing that kind of thing. Now, there was other things that contributed to it, but that was certainly one of the issues. So just buying a straight up cost per case is something that's generally not allowed. However, it does happen pretty rampantly inside the mass tort bar on the plaintiff side. And what Case Legal does to close the loop on this is, we're generating advertising. The advertising are going to that will generate leads. The leads will get qualified at the call center level. All of that is nice and clean. And so we take a lot of care in making sure that we don't get into those kinds of agreements where the marketer has promised the firm a certain amount of cases for a certain dollar amount, and then that can get you into some that could you and I, Greg, and probably most of the people listening are going to be attorneys. That's something to be very careful of, especially now.
All right. So here in Florida, tort reform happened this year, and there's a lot of my colleagues, including myself, that our bread and butter might be gone. And I'd say there's going to be thousands of lawyers in Florida in the next year that are going to be unemployed and not having any work, or having their current case load, dwindle to nothing, and looking to do other things. They might listen to this program or something like this. They might go to a mass tort conference, and all of a sudden, once they get sort of in that little world, the ads, the emails from marketers, hey, I can do this, that, or the other thing, start happening, and you get very excited, and you don't know what you're doing, and you sign up with somebody. You mentioned Camp Lejeune causing some issues. First, tell us about what problems did Camp Lejeune basically cause, or have raised awareness about, and what particular problems, aside from the guaranteed cost per case, can lawyers get into if they hire a marketing firm to go out and get them work?
Yeah, there's a number of things. So Camp Lejeune, I think at the last Mass Tort Made Perfect, I think the number that was released was in about a 6 to 9 month time frame in 2022. Something like $140 million worth of advertising was spent in that back half of 2022. The previous high watermark was Roundup, and that was 2018, maybe 2019. And I remember there was a big dust up over, oh my gosh, there was over $40 million worth of ad money that was spent, acquiring these cases on the marketing side. What happened in Camp Lejeune dwarfed any previous marketing and advertising spearhead for cases on the plaintiff side. And in that, if there's so much money that's flying around, you just gotta imagine, Greg, and that there were bad actors in there. And there's, you might be working with a marketing group that, maybe it started last year or the year before, and maybe they're buying traffic and passing it off as their own. They don't necessarily know where it's coming from, but they're just, the firm is happy to have the lead and the retainer in hand. But as the lawyer, you can't just offload all of your responsibility to the marketing group. And, you have to be aware, not have to be, but you are going to probably become aware of some kind of nefarious technique that was maybe happening upriver, and then that was it resulted in you having the retainer, and maybe that was a great cost per case or something, or maybe it wasn't a great cost per case, or maybe you didn't get anything. So it brings up a whole host of issues. You're paying marketers, and it's kind of this black box of things that they do, and it just, as long as I get the case, I'm happy. But there's a lot of times when you pay marketers money, especially online marketers only, and then you don't get the case. Okay, so that's one issue. Where'd the money go? And then if you do have the case, maybe you paid a guaranteed cost for it, and maybe somebody will come asking for it, maybe or about that, maybe somebody won't. And then probably the biggest issue is what's happening upriver. You're getting into an agreement with somebody who's maybe buying affiliate traffic, and I got to imagine that anybody listening to this is aware of affiliate marketers, and different media groups will kind of put a lot of affiliate traffic inside a funnel, and then it all gets put into the regular stream of things that the firm sees. Well, there's any number of things that are going on inside there, that gets put in the hopper there, and that's where the risk is, because you have a lot of people who are, you have a lot of marketers who are getting lists of leads from different places. Maybe it's above board, maybe it's not. They're reaching out to those leads either with a text or a call. In the eyes of the TCPA, a text and a call are the same thing. Email's different, but you had a ton of people that were just bombarding leads that a lot of them didn't consent to be contacted, and those lists were basically these big mosaics of people that marketers can buy from data brokers, and then they'll start getting into direct solicitation issues where they start sending texts saying, hey, you've got the consumer just out of the blue gets a text that says, you've got $150,000 waiting for you on a Camp Lejeune claim. I was at a conference and we saw some of those kinds of nefarious texts, and that kind of stuff happened all over the place on Camp Lejeune. So because the tsunami of marketing that was happening, it just brought out all of the people from under the bridge, and the dust is settling now, and people are kind of realizing, what they have, what they paid for, what they should have had. Maybe some of these cases came in through a source that I'm not entirely sure of. That is all that is happening right this moment.
Yeah. All right. So you mentioned the TCPA, and I know before we started to talk, we talked about the newly proposed FCC rule. So why don't you explain that and what the significance is to, Joe Blow lawyer that, wants to build up their practice or wants to diversify, gets into this world. I'm going to give this marketer my money and just close my eyes, hope that I can get a couple of cases out of it. What's the concern, and what are these acronyms?
Right. Yeah, so the FCC has proposed a rule. It's in the comment stage right now, and I believe its last comment is scheduled for sometime in April. But it is the purpose of the act, or the rule, is to close the lead generator loop, is how they've defined it. And when I was talking earlier about marketers buying these lists of people who may have consented to something upriver, maybe years ago, maybe you opted into some kind of, you bought an insurance plan and then you opted to receive texts. You bought something else, who knows, maybe a car, and you opted to, okay, so you're opting in somewhere upriver, and then you've got data brokers who are basically building these lists, building these mosaics of people who have consented to something, consented to be contacted by their partners and their publishers, and it's all kind of disguised on the lead form when you're filling out stuff online. And that is, everybody that's listening to this, I'm sure, is aware of getting texts and getting calls from people like, I didn't agree to be contacted about this kind of thing. Well, the TCPA requires prior express written consent to be contacted. So if a marketer is going to be reaching out to somebody, making a call or making a text, they've got to have the authority to be able to do that, and that authority comes from the consumer's own consent. Well, in the previous 10 years or so, as lead generation has just become this juggernaut, consent is identified as doing one of those upriver things. Hey, you consented to be called, with all of our partners and publishers, like a couple of years ago. So I've got your consent to now bombard you with Camp Lejeune or Roundup ads, or whatever the tort du jour may be. And so really what's happening is that people at the FCC are also getting, like, we know that once the lawmakers start, getting affected by what's happening out in the marketplace, that's when they start really, taking action on it. And so those people are getting bombarded with texts and calls also. And the example that the FCC used was, it's their lodestar example of, and it's on the front page of the rule proposal, which is, there was a group that was, had a lead generation form and had a click box, and the click box language said that, you're agreeing to be contacted, even by our partners and stuff. And that partners is a link on the lead form. You go into the link, which nobody does. Most people don't. You go behind the link, and then the example is, this marketer had a list of over 5,000 people that they were considering their partners and publishers. Okay. So then, if you're consenting to be contacted for something on that lead form, then you're never going to get, your phone's never going to stop ringing. It's never. And so what the rule proposes, to bring it back home, is it's going to require a one-to-one connection between what you're getting called for or texted on and what you've consented to. So no longer will you be able to, on the marketing side, will you be able to consider consent for something that's way upriver versus what you're trying to sell. You no longer have the authority to start reaching out to those people, and that consent doesn't apply unless it's a one-to-one connection. Again, it's still in its comment stage, but this is a potential deal killer, industry-wide killer for a lot of affiliates, a lot of people, a lot of data brokers that like to package. And sometimes it's not all bad, right? I mean, sometimes it's not all bad if you're, if they're sophisticated enough and you bought a refrigerator, well, then, you might be in the market for a new stove or something. Who knows? But it's more often than not being used to pester people and to really act on the black hat side of things. And the FCC is going to shut it down. So the ability for lead generators to build these mosaics of these leads, thousands and dozens of thousands of people that consented to something somewhere along the line, no longer can you start hammering those people with ads. And that's going to be a real game changer for a lot of the affiliate marketing, a lot of the lead generation marketing. The flip side of the argument is that, well, whack-a-mole, you just, you close down the avenue for one thing, and then, something else, they'll find a way around it. And that's fine. But certainly coming later this summer and early fall is going to be that one-to-one requirement. And therefore, the people who are very interested in TCPA litigation and, being contacted by somebody that they didn't have the authority to contact them from. So, it's really going to be a lot of TCPA troll litigation that's going to police this.
Class actions.
Yeah. I mean, that's how it's going. That's how it's going to come out in the wash. Is there's going to be more firms and more people getting hit with TCPA violations because it's the FCC's rule, and they regulate the TCPA. So the rules are going to change in the background, and it's coming.
All right. So listen, folks. That's going to do it for this episode of Cut to the Chase. But if you're a lawyer out there and you're like, listen, I got to do something. I cannot close my shop. I do not want to close my shop. I want to expand. I want to market. This all sounds, the mass tort single event. I can't believe I can market all this stuff. You got to realize whatever your marketer does, you're responsible for. Okay. You might not know what they're doing. You might not want to know what they're doing. But
yes.
Just think about it this way. One of the reasons why you want to call Case Legal Media is because they actually have Billy Walters who's an attorney, who's their corporate counsel, telling them what they can and they cannot do. And so that should give you a lot of comfort and confidence that if you do the marketing, you're not going to get in trouble. You're going to build your practice. You're going to work. You're going to have cases. You're going to, go out and get justice, everything else you want. Agreed or disagree?
Agreed. Thank you, Greg. Wonderful. Honor to be here. So thank you very much for asking me.
All right. That's it for this episode of Cut to the Chase, everybody. Go out and make it happen. All right.